What is up? Thank you for tuning in to the 165th edition of the MMA Podcast. Got a lot to break down here. April 6, 2016. Daniel Cormier out against his UFC 197 match against Jon Jones. Ovint St. Preux filling in. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Tony Ferguson dropping off of the UFC Tampa card that's going down in a week and a half. Just earlier tonight, Tate versus Nunes scheduled for UFC 200. Gonna touch on that. Not the most expected opponent for Tate. And of course, this weekend, UFC making its debut in Croatia at UFC Zagreb. Gonna be breaking down that card coming up this Sunday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. Let's do it.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
Thank you, Lenny Hart. That's the truth. It is the MMA Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you're listening live, you can tweet us. We'll try to read your tweet on air. And we are on Twitter at the MMA Podcast, or you can call in. The phone number is 213-457-3380, or you can Skype us. Joined this evening by none other than P Money on Twitter at Sweet Pappy Jones. What up, Pat?
Big Jake, we are just chilling. It is a lovely Southern California evening here, and very stoked. We got an irrigation flood going on here because the takes are so hot. We're busting the pipes trying to put the fire out from these hot takes. Ready to serve them up to the folks here this Wednesday night, and talk about some of the announcements that were just recently made on UFC tonight.
Piping hot takes here on the MMA Podcast. As always, you can visit themmapodcast.com. Click the links at the top for iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube. You'll probably notice that the articles on the MMApodcast.com are super old. And we are looking to get that a little more active this summer. So excuse us for not posting any new stories, but the links at the top are always good if you want to listen to the show and subscribe. And we do it every week, every Wednesday after UFC tonight. Once again, the phone number is 213-457-3380 if you want to call in, and you can click those links to subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, all for free.
Free 99.
The low. Which, quick shout out to the Right Time with Bo Money Jones. I don't want folks to think I just lifted it with no remorse. It is it's a shout out. It's a curtain call to one of my favorite sports podcasts out there right now, The Right Time. If you're a mainstream sports fan, basketball, hockey, or I guess they probably don't talk too much hockey, but basketball, football, all of that, just like the stat of the day is a shout out to the Dan Patrick Show. Speaking of shows you might want to listen to if you are all into amateur wrestling, both college and Olympic. The Olympic trials are going to be this weekend in Iowa City to figure out who is going to be on this 2016 U.S. Olympic team. A lot of names mixed in with MMA. Henry Cejudo actually was rumored to be there until he took the title fight against Johnson. Aaron Pico, a pretty bright MMA prospect, will be there along with most of the champions at the NCAA wrestling tournament from a couple weeks ago. Zane Rutherford, Alex Derringer, Kyle Snyder. If you are into all of that, listen to the T. Row and Funky Show with Ben Askren and Tommy Rowlands on Twitter at T. Row Funky Show. 5 minutes in, enough with all the shameless plugs. Let's get to the news. Like I said at the top of the show, UFC 197, that card headlined by two championship fights, one between Johnson and Cejudo, the other between Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier, a rematch We were wondering if that fight was going to go on about a week ago when John Jones was thrown in jail for 2 days, violated his probation, was released, and the fight was determined to still be going on up until just a few days later when it was announced that Daniel Cormier, I think this was Friday, news broke by Diz at Talk MMA. Daniel Cormier is going to be out of that fight, and now we know that Ovent St. Preux is going to be in against John Jones. Obviously St. Preux isn't going to have the sort of odds that DC had. I don't think many people are giving OSP a chance in hell. I think the last I saw, Jones was minus 800 against OSP. I can check now. Oh, that's actually sunk now to minus 500, but he's still a big lead over OSP. Pat, your thoughts on the injury? Does OSP have a chance in hell against John Jones here?
Well, that's certainly debatable. I really don't see how OSP wins this fight. He's a good fighter, but I think John Jones, I mean, this is the guy that was heralded as the pound for pound, the guy who was going to usurp the crown of the greatest of all time. Still has the potential to do that. The list of names of people that he's run through, the caliber of fighters he's taken on, I think this is a comeback fight for John Jones. Really, he just wants to get in the cage. They wanted to make a more high profile fight, but Rashad Evans apparently he's booked, and then Anthony Johnson apparently had a dental procedure of some sort that would not let him step into the cage on such short notice. So OSP was the next highest ranked available guy, I suppose is how that worked out. And props to them both for taking on the fight. Going to be an interim light heavyweight championship fight here. Incredibly interesting. It's not really interesting. It's just a sham these days what they're doing, throwing around the interim belts. I mean, Cormier is going to be out a couple months or something like that, and they're going to go ahead and slap the interim championship title on yet another fight. But really, John Jones, he's got the height, he's got the reach, he has the technique in grappling as well as the striking. I mean, I really feel like he just wins anywhere this fight goes. This is really his fight to lose. I don't see much of a chance for OSP versus John Jones.
And man, they had an interesting war of words, to say the least, after it was announced that OSP would sub in, which, you know, it's not my favorite fight, but to give the UFC credit, almost every 205er is either booked up or injured. I believe they asked Rumble Johnson if he could step in, and he just had a dental procedure and couldn't even put in a mouthpiece, which, oh my God. If you're Rumble Johnson, this is not the time to get a dental procedure, bro. You are easily the guy that they sub in if either one gets hurt. And with the injury bug being as prevalent as it's been, we're maybe talking about a 50-50 chance that one of these guys is going to back out. And both guys are, warriors. I mean, Daniel or John, I'm sure, would step into the cage injured. But just, with all of the fucking injuries and all of the fight, postponements and cancellations, if I was in Rumble's corner, I would be saying a few months ago, hey, Rumble, let's keep training, let's stay fresh, let's make sure that, whether it's a month and a half or a week and a half before this fight, if somebody gets injured, you be ready to step in and be in shape. And let's look at both guys and just, sort of plan for the future and say, all right, what do I need to do if I'm going to be fighting John? Let's train A, B, and C. What do I need to do if I'm going to be fighting Daniel? Let's train D, E, and F. And frankly, let's train on A, B, and C a little bit more because he's probably going to win the fight. Man, for Johnson to be taking time off and getting a dental procedure and not being able to get plugged into this fight obviously hurts him. He I'm sure would have loved the chance to fight John Jones. He was supposed to fight John Jones back at UFC 187. Yeah, 187 before Jones got in all of that hit and run stuff in New Mexico, which actually brings me to my next point. OSP gets the fight, and then Daniel Cormier goes on the MMA Hour, and I don't know if this was on the MMA Hour or if he was responding what Jones said on the MMA Hour, but Cormier essentially offered OSP help, and I think he offered to fly him out to San Jose to fight at American Kickboxing Academy with him, Rockhold, Habib, Kane, even though Kane I think is injured currently. Jones wasn't very impressed with Cormier's offer for help, despite the fact that St. Preux declined it, telling Ariel Helwani, quote, "Daniel is an absolute coward who will never beat me. And I say that not from an arrogant place. I say that from a place where me getting my belt back, it means everything to me. That belt right now is a big part of my life. It means everything to me. Me losing to OSP should be the last thing that Cormier would want, because if I were somehow to lose, that means he doesn't get to avenge his only loss." So Jones tells Ariel that DC is a coward. Cormier let loose on Twitter after this, saying, "Coward is running from the scene of a crime without checking on the person you hurt. Coward is refusing to fight Gustafsson. Coward is UFC 151. Going on saying, "John Jones, I've never been afraid of you or anyone in my entire life. You calling me a coward is insane. Your day will come, bitch. Jones, you can't hurt me. You lunch like a bitch," which I think he meant punch, and he said "you lunch like a bitch," which turned into a meme of its own. The you lunch like a bitch line for a day or two on the MMA Twitter, saying, quote, "You're not winning the decision next time. Just don't get your dumbass arrested again. Loser junkie." He kept on tweeting. He didn't put his phone down. "Oh my God, Jones is cool. He took late notice fight. Yeah, I'd fight OSP too. I do it on 1 day notice. Harder fight. You tuck your tail again." Didn't put his phone down. "Remember, Jones, I didn't call you a coward when you moved our first fight due to injury. Hypocrite. That's the biggest word I'll use when talking to you." Last tweet. "John, you're dumb. Like, really dumb. Get off your high horse and stop riding the white horse. Junkie, I'm gonna rip your head off." But yeah, he did not let loose. I saw a lot of mixed reaction, most of it just enjoying all of that. But some folks are not really digging it, saying, we're trying to get mainstream, and this is just like pro wrestling childish stuff that the sport doesn't need. I'm all for it. I love, there is nothing better than petty rivalries, like when the Auburn Library burned down in 1996 and my Florida Gators head coach Steve Spurrier said in a press conference, "Oh man, that's a shame about the Auburn Library. They only finished coloring half of the books in there." That is extreme pettiness, and that's what I think sports needs more of. Every athlete, every coach wants to be the good guy, wants to be the sportsman, wants to, I really respect my opponent. That's not entertaining to me. I want to be entertained, and you know what entertains me? Stuff like this rivalry between John Jones and Daniel Cormier. What did you think about that back and forth?
Oh man, that back and forth was priceless there. Daniel Cormier really came on point. Those arguments, really, you can't argue with the logic he was bringing forth there. reminded me of our buddy Allen, who was just you can you can hear him at the UFC Unstoppable press conference, just shouting "Coke" the entire time, like throughout the entire press conference. Anytime John Jones said anything, and his hashtags he was using really reminded me of that. So that was a fun thing for me to see. As you said, it's just great entertainment. Um, Good to build up the fight when it eventually does happen, assuming it will happen at some point down the road here. Yeah, you're certainly spot on as well about Anthony Johnson picking the wrong time to have that procedure done. I mean, as you mentioned, fights fall out on the regular. You almost have to. I mean, you have to stay in shape all the time, just because. I mean, that seems to be the way that really fights are made these days. Because fights are made 3 months in advance, and then you'll see 6 different fighter changes. It's not even close to what it was before. So you just need to be ready to go at all times, because it seems like nowadays the only hope you have of a fight sticking together is if it's made 10 days out of the card. So unfortunate Johnson wasn't around to step in and take this one, but it'll be a good one. I mean, OSP, we certainly can't count him out, but man, this is quite a huge test for him and John Jones.
Yeah, that will be UFC 197, Jones versus St. Preux. Let's move on. Speaking of wars of words, we'll get to the Cerrone Habib war words tonight in a second. But first, I sort of got to set the table. UFC Tampa in a week and a half. Tony Ferguson versus Habib Nurmagomedov, an expected number 1 title contenders fight at lightweight. Now canceled, unfortunately, because Ferguson is injured. Glover Evans will be the new main event there in Tampa. And it was first rumored that we were going to see Cerrone get plugged in, and now I'm not really sure what the deal is. Ariel tweeting just less than an hour ago, both fighters, Cerrone and Nurmagomedov, agreed to fight at 170 at UFC Tampa. Right now, though, it seems like the UFC is pushing for a postponement of the fight because Tony isn't going to be on the shelf that long. And I guess they really like that fight for the number 1 contender spot between Nurmagomedov and Ferguson, so they might push it up to May 29th to the Las Vegas card, being headlined by Thomas Almeida and Cody Garbrandt. So, moving it a month and a half up to that fight at the Mandalay Bay. So that's led, I don't know if it's the UFC. I mean, it seems like the UFC is the one stopping the Cerrone Nurmagomedov card, because you have both guys now tweeting back at each other. All of this going on like an hour ago. Habib saying, "At Cowboy, just sign the contract. I'm waiting for you." Cowboy says, "I already did, bitch." And Habib responds, "You call me bitch in hiding, not signing the contract. Just show me your signature like I showed you, bitch." Since then, let's see, has Cowboy responded? What did he say? He signed it yesterday. Responding to a fan saying, at Karen Bryant, "Is Donald out with a rib injury or no?" Donald says, "How the fuck would she know? I'm sitting here on my couch telling you I'm 100%. That's pretty funny. Would you rather see Habib versus Cerrone at UFC Tampa or get it bumped up to May 29th? I actually kind of agree with the UFC here. Ferguson and Nurmagomedov are on such great runs. This makes the most sense for the winner getting a title shot. Cerrone, as much as I think he's a beast and would like to see him fight for a title again soon, he just got his title fight. And, him fighting Habib at 170, I don't know if that does much for Habib. I think beating Ferguson does a lot more. And I would really love to see a rematch between the champion Dos Anjos and Nurmagomedov. Because if it goes anything like the first time, I think we might have a new Russian champion in at 155. I honestly believe Khabib is the best fighter at lightweight in the UFC. Pat, would you rather see Khabib Ferguson in May, or should they just plug Donald in now and let him fight Khabib at UFC Tampa?
Oh man, I mean, I really wouldn't mind seeing Habib versus Cerrone for the Tampa card. I mean, we know Cowboy's going to stay active. He was saying he wants that fight, and then he still wants to fight Cote. I believe July thereabout is slated for. So of course that's a normal work schedule for Donald Cerrone, maybe even a little longer between fights, still than he normally takes. So that'd be perfect for him, but and I also think that might not be a bad fight for Habib either, just in the sense that Donald Cerrone, he's a high range opponent, um, but he's been flirting with the 170-pound division as of late. He does have a recent loss in a title fight at 155 pounds. So even if he did fight at 155, this fight, um, Habib, it would be a good name for him. At the same time, not. I mean, I just think Tony Ferguson right now is on such a hot streak. Um, the fight versus Cerrone may be one that's a little more winnable for him. And I mean, I bite my tongue calling Cerrone an easier fight for anybody. Um, but I think I could see just a little. Well, and I hate to say it, I don't want to sell Cerrone short either. I mean, they're really tough fights either way. Um, and Habib certainly is, either way, he's not going to have an easy fight making his return to the 155-pound division. Um, yeah, I don't mind seeing Cowboy fight anybody, but really, I can see the UFC, the logic behind them wanting to promote these guys. They really are the two guys who have done the most work at the 155-pound division. Truly a fight with some merit to it. So, you know what? Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I would actually, I suppose, prefer to see Habib versus Tony Ferguson, especially if it's only going to be delayed by about a month. Just because, damn it, it would be good to see someone who fought and deserved to get a title fight, get a title fight.
Yeah, yeah, I obviously agree there with that being a lot more definitive fight as far as rounding out the title picture at 155. Next, and our last announced fight to talk about was just announced at UFC tonight, on UFC tonight. Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes, or Nunes, I'm not sure, at UFC 200. Does the fight make sense is my question. You know, we were thinking originally that Tate might fight Holm again. She might get a trilogy fight against Rousey. She might fight Kat Zingano. Cyborg's now in the picture in the UFC. And she gets the fight against a Nunes, who was, she was definitely in the conversation, but for sure not a front runner. Not sure, the UFC is trying to make 200 this blockbuster card, but they're not really going for it I thought they may have before. But that is the scheduled fight now, Tate versus Nunes. Does this fight make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense to me in the thought that the UFC really wanted Holly Holm to beat Miesha Tate so that they could set up the Ronda Rousey rematch at UFC 200. Of course, there's some that say that that fight was just never going to happen anyways. But I really think that's kind of what is going on here. I mean, how do you not give it to Ronda Rousey? Or I'm sorry, how do you not give it to Holly Holm? She was, pretty close. I mean, of course, I suppose on the scorecards, it was going the way of the majority draw. But in that case, Holly Holm still would have retained her title. So I don't know how in such a closely contested fight, right up until that finish. I don't know how Holly Holm doesn't get that shot at a rematch. You know, Amanda Nunes, she's quite a game fighter. She's got heavy hands and she has good striking. She's got a good grappling game. I'd say almost like Misha Tate herself. Amanda Nunes, she may not have the credentials, the judo bronze medal or the boxing world championship, but man, she puts it together in the cage very well, and she's beaten some top competition in devastating fashion. I can't wait to see her get in there. She's definitely been deserving of a title fight for some time now. Some would say you probably could have put her in there instead of Misha Tate against Holly Holm. I mean, she's been knocking at the door for the top at the women's bantamweight division for some time. So I like the fight. I think she's got what it takes to take Misha Tate out. Misha Tate is arguably the second best grappler in the UFC 135-pound division, next to Ronda Rousey. This will be a good litmus test for Amanda Nunes because Amanda Nunes has also taken out Sarah McMahon, the women's silver medal Olympic wrestling winner. So she certainly has the chops. She's shown that she's proficient everywhere the fight goes. I am kind of interested as to why it wasn't Holm versus Misha Tate. Some people are thinking they're just going to set up the Holm versus Rousey rematch for later on in the year, and that's why they're making this one for UFC 200. But however it came about, I do think that this is going to be a solid fight. These ladies both they come to bring it in the octagon, and Amanda Nunes, she's got a violent style there. I like seeing what she can do, and I think she's got a good chance to keep this women's bantamweight belt hot potato thing going here and snatch a championship, Misha Tate.
Yeah, that I mean, none of these fights are gimme fights for Misha Tate. I do think she is gonna beat Amanda Nunes, though. Nunes has definitely had success against wrestlers. Like you mentioned, she beat Sarah McMahon. I'm trying to pull up her record right now. Not prepared as I should have been. All right, so yeah, she defeated Shayna Baszler, which I don't know if she gets much credit for that. Sarah McMahon with a rear naked choke in the first round. Valentina Shevchenko with a unanimous decision at that same event where Misha Tate won the belt off of Holly Holm. I don't know. I think Misha Tate for sure is her toughest test. But I just think Tate is really sort of, there's no real fighter like her. She does have that wrestling background, but most wrestlers in the UFC's women's bantamweight division just do not have the striking to keep up with a competent striker. Tate's got that, and I think if Tate can weather that early storm that Nunes brings, I think she defends the belt. Did you make a pick? Are you going Nunes?
Yeah. I think we can say I am going Nunes in this one. I think the hands are a little crisper. She's got those jiu-jitsu skills. I think she's a crafty one. She hits hard. We've seen Misha get hit hard before, although she has bounced back nice. I think Nunes is just a beast. I think it's her time with this one.
And that will be going down July 9th, UFC 200, T.S. McGregor 2. What else do we have to get to? Bellator Dynamite 2, Rampage and Satoshi Ishii. At 215 pounds, this is going to be the main event for Bellator's Dynamite 2 on June 24th in St. Louis. this news getting confirmed on ESPN.com. Man, I think you said it best before we started this show, saying that Ishii loves taking fights where he just takes a pounding by a legend, whether it's Fedor, whether it's Crow Cop, now Rampage. I don't think there's any question that Page is gonna beat this guy senseless. I don't know why it's at 215. I mean, if anyone has pushed this to be at 215, I guess it's Rampage. I guess he just doesn't want to cut to 205. Yeah, this is going to be a MMA fight at 215 pounds. The Dynamite 2 card will be a mix of MMA and kickboxing fights, sort of like the one they did with Glory and tested out before starting their own mixed promotion. What are your thoughts on this? I already, you said it perfect. Page is gonna knock the guy out. I guess good for Ishii to take these fights against legends where he knows the deal. Not saying he's gonna work the fight like Ramses would say, but yeah, I don't see this going any way but for Page.
Yeah, no, that's Ishii. It seems like the majority of his MMA career has just been getting thrown into these large main events on these huge stages against opponents he's clearly not ready to take on. He's not on the level of Rampage, not the Rampage of today, not the Rampage of 10 years ago. But hey, this is classic Bellator matchmaking right here. This is what they've been known for some time. And Scott Coker and his organizations especially. Strikeforce had some of the most lopsided matchups. I don't know how athletic commissions even sanction these fights. Although I want to say Ishii, I always forget. Ishii was the gold medalist in judo. I forget. I want to say he had some sort of clout along those lines, some sort of Olympic credentials.
Olympic gold medalist, yeah.
Yeah, and so that kind of got him fast tracked in the mixed martial arts world, and yeah, not a surprising move from Bellator. Yeah, as you mentioned, plus this is just perfect for a Rampage 215. That's like, we should just call that Rampage weight. It's that perfect, not heavyweight, but just don't want to kill yourself trying to get to 205. So they'll make the 215. This just seems to be stacking the deck in his favor. Ishii fighting guys like Fedor and Crow Cop. He's typically fighting at heavyweight at that 265 limit. So I want to say he normally comes in about 240. I can't clearly recall. But either way, I would imagine Ishii would have to cut at least a little bit in this fight. So it's I don't know. It just seems like they're really setting Rampage up for a win here, which is not surprising. They want to toss him a nice underhand one for his return to Spike TV.
That's right. Going back to Bellator, going back to Spike. Legal issues there. Who knows what the rest of his career will hold. Seems to be bouncing back and forth, but at least we know his next fight will be at Bellator Dynamite 2. I guess that takes us to a segment we haven't done in a while. We always used to do it the first week of every month. We would talk about the fight we are most pumped for the upcoming month. And we thought, why not bring it back? Let's bring it back. The fights we're pumped for April 2016.
Well, for me, for 2016, for April, it's going to be a stacked month of fights. We got 3 big cards. One that's really standing out for me is John Dodson taking on Manville Gambarian. Gambarian, we haven't seen him in the cage for a long time. And he's always been a gatekeeper at the 135 pound, 145 pound division. He's been close. He got to a title shot, kind of like John Dodson. John Dodson, although you could easily say was number 2 or number 3 in the flyweight division. He beat everybody that was put in front of him, not named Demetrius Johnson. He's got knockout power. We've seen it at 135. We've seen it at 125. We haven't seen so much of it as of late, but he's always a threat. And maybe going back to 135 pounds is just what he needs. And it'll be good to see him going back up a weight. It'll be good to see Manny Gambarian back there in the cage. See how he's doing these days, see how he fares. And yeah, it's actually going to be on a very stacked card overall. But for me, that's what's standing out to me for April 2016.
For myself, man, there are a lot of good ones, a lot of honorable mentions. Pettis Barboza, Robert Whitaker and Rafael Natal, Yair Rodriguez, Andre Fili, Carla Esparza making her return. All of these fights on UFC 197. We obviously would have had Jones Cormier. Instead, we have Jones St. Preux. UFC Tampa, that's ripe with a bunch of great fights. Glover Rashad, Lyoto versus Hendo, Namajunas versus Tisha Torres, Swanson Diaz, Beneil DeRush Chiesa. It's going to be a fun month. Bitch Correia and Rocky Pennington. I'm going for one that I think not a lot of people would choose. I'm going Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo in a fight that, your current pound-for-pound king, Demetrius Johnson, and yes, he is the pound-for-pound king. No one's on the run he's currently on, and I know a lot of folks want to say John Jones. Guess what? John Jones hasn't fought in a year and a half because he's been fucking around with his life. So we got the pound-for-pound king, Demetrius Johnson, in a fight that I think he loses in. Spoiler alert to the MMA podcast in 2 weeks where we actually break this card down. But I'm picking Henry Cejudo against Demetrius Johnson. Henry Cejudo might be the best wrestler in UFC history. The guy won an Olympic gold medal. All right, there are a lot of sports, I'm not going to name any, where gold medal's like, yeah, whatever. Your sport isn't really practiced by many people. Great, fucking going. Like curling. Wrestling, men's wrestling is a incredibly difficult sport, not just to make the U.S. Olympic team, but to medal. To win gold, you got to be a motherfucker. Henry Cejudo is that motherfucker. He has never lost. And he's going to put Johnson in a spot Johnson's never really been in. Johnson, his whole run at 125, Johnson's been the better wrestler in every single fight. Johnson gets to choose where the fight takes place. Johnson chooses whether he wants to box with you or whether, he wants to bring it to the ground. I think Demetrius might be forced to fight off his back more than he has in his career, at least career as champion. So just because I think everyone is underrating the hell out of Henry Cejudo, and I think that we might have a new champion come UFC 197, which honestly I don't even know if I would wish that upon Johnson. I might be rooting for Mighty Mouse because I think he's a very underrated fighter. Folks say, "Oh, he's 125. He's boring, etc., etc." You obviously haven't watched this dude fight. His boxing is exciting. He finishes fights. I mean, just go to the fight against Kyoji Horiguchi, where he knows he would have won that fight on the judges' scorecard, but no, he fought for a submission with a second left in the fight. I mean, the guy's an animal. I love him, but I'm really looking forward to this Cejudo Johnson fight because I think Henry Cejudo might shock the world. That's the fight I'm looking for April 2016, and we will move on. I don't know. I hate this show and when folks call it anti-UFC because I like to give the UFC a lot of credit. A, because we talk about it. If I hated it so much, we wouldn't be talking about it as much as we do. It's a well-oiled machine. Dana White's done a lot for the sport. The UFC has done so much for the sport. But then you get these stories like Matt Mitrione saying he was talking to Lorenzo Fertitta, expressing his frustration with the Reebok deal. And Lorenzo Fertitta says things like the fighters are replaceable. And the fighters are not the product that the UFC is selling. I mean, how absurd is this? The fighters aren't the product the UFC is selling. Oh, yeah, you're totally right. People tune in to hear Joe Rogan and watch the ring girls walk around the cage, and I don't even know what does that even mean. This is the most stripped down sport where it's just fighters. It's not like baseball where you have a bat and a ball, basketball where you have a hoop and a net and a ball. This is just two dudes with gloves on beating the shit out of each other, and you're going to say that the fighters aren't the product the UFC is selling. It just shows you how out of touch Zuffa really is. I think Zuffa has done a ton for the sport, but if they sold the UFC, I'd be kind of relieved. I'd be like, sweet, maybe we can have some owners who aren't, drafting out backroom deals with Reebok without any sort of fighter input, and then the deal screws over the fighters and takes tons of money out of everyone's pocket. They need a fighters union. They need a lot. There's this huge antitrust lawsuit looming over them. As much as I wish them well, I would like to see some new faces in there, and thoughts and comments like the ones that Fertitta has made just strengthens that thought process in my head. What do you make of just stuff like this that is so out of place from someone who should be looking out for the fighters and should appreciate the fighters?
Well, Jake, I think what it is here, and you kind of hit the nail on the head here when you said that this is a very stripped down sport. It's just two guys in the octagon fighting, and really there are rules, but essentially it's two guys fighting in a cage doing anything they can to beat their opponent. That's really what it comes down to. Of course, again, there are the rules and the weight classes, but other than that, that is the gist of the sport. So in that sense, perhaps Lorenzo is right that the fighters are replaceable because, again, it's not, oh, I like this fighter, I like that fighter. Most people are like, oh, it's going to be two people fighting in a cage. It's like the fight in middle school in the lunch yard. You didn't know who the two people were fighting, but it was a fight, so you're watching. And that is kind of a human instinct almost. If you're flipping through the channels, there's a few things, if you see on the TV, you're just going to automatically stop. It's going to be human nature. And a fight is probably going to be one of those things. Most people are going to stop and just wonder what is going on. So in that sense, perhaps the fighters are replaceable, as Fertitta says. And that's the only way I could think that his statement that the fighters are not the product the UFC is selling, that's the only way I can think that it makes sense, is that if you're thinking about it in the sense that it's not the fighters, it's just fighting, period. I don't know. It seems absurd, and as you mentioned, with the whole antitrust lawsuit thing, who knows what stage that whole investigation or trial where that's going right now. But man, that would seem like a really terrible thing to say to a employee you're having negotiations with or just having any kind of conversation with. It really makes you wonder if Matt Mitrione is going to try and jump in on that lawsuit now that he's over there with Bellator.
Decent point. I mean, it's an ever-growing suit. Very interested to see how it works out because it could spell out a lot of change in the sport's future if the courts are sympathetic to these fighters. What do we got next? Oh yeah, I wanted to mention Alex Gustafsson pulls a April Fool's Day prank on the world saying he's retired. I sort of sniffed it out after, maybe 3 seconds of being shocked, like, no. Then I was like, wait, it's April 1st. Fuck off, Gustafson. And then later on in the post, he started, like, saying, like, weird stuff, like, I want to spend more time with my dog. And it seemed more like a humorous post than not. My question to you, you have any good April Fool's Day stories? What is the best April Fool's Day prank that you have pulled or has been pulled on you? Any good
Oh my
ones?
goodness! You know what? It's terrible that I really don't. I do
Fuck
not.
April Fool's
I'm not
Day,
a practical.
man. Like,
Hey,
honestly,
you know what?
fuck April Fool's Day.
No, I'm fully on board with that. I'm not a big practical joker myself. I like to joke around. I like to bullshit as much as the next person, but practical jokes, pranks, things of that nature, that shit just gets me pissed off. I will start swinging on a fool real quick for playing an April Fool's Day joke. So not I can't even recall any that's ever been played on me, and it pisses me off so much. I don't like doing that to other people. It is fun sitting and watching the April Fool's Day shenanigans unfold, but I do not like to actively participate myself.
Some are funny, I don't want to be a complete Scrooge. Like Google will post a fake product they're doing, or just random stuff, but I mean, when it comes from at least most of my retard friends, it's like, oh my god, North Korea bombed the US. And I'm like, oh shit, let me check CNN. No, I don't see anything on CNN. Ha ha ha! April Fools! Like, alright. Like, you just wasted 10 seconds of my day. That was worth it. April Fools, man. Have a good day. Like, I don't know. I've always if I'm going to go April Fools, like, I'm down for an elaborate prank. I think who was it recently? Bloodstained Lane, like, faked his own death. I don't know if that was an April Fool's Day joke or what, but yeah, there's I don't know. I feel like 90% of April Fool's Day jokes either are just stupid and pointless or go way over the line. Like, I've seen a lot of hurt butts because of April Fool's Day jokes. And no one likes to be the butt end of a joke, especially when it's a really, really, really good and elaborate one. I guess that brings us to our last topic, UFC Zagreb, breaking down that card. Really, I mean, honestly, looking at the card, the only two fights I think are worth breaking down on their own are the main and co-main event. So aside from that, anything standing out? You have Igor Pekrayak versus Jan Blachowicz. A lot of European fighters, to be completely honest. Of all of these fights, there's only 3 fights where I actually recognize people's names. And that's 6 on the main card, 7 on the prelim. So this is a 13-fight card. I recognize Zach Cummings. I recognize Ian Entwistle. I recognize Mairbek Taisumov. All right, I guess I recognize a decent amount. Robert White for Lucas Martins, Marina Moroz, obviously Jan Blachowicz and Igor Pekrayak. But the main card, I mean, the top 4 fights are heavyweight fights. I don't know 3 of these 8 guys. Timothy Johnson, Marcin Tybura, and Curtis Blades. Never heard of you. I've heard of Francis Ngannou and obviously the fighters in the main and co-main event, which we'll break down. But yeah, this is not the strongest card, which I understand. Every card the UFC puts on isn't going to be UFC 200, but yeah, this is a card I'm gonna maybe catch live. If I'm not able to, I wouldn't be crushed if I had to watch a replay and just skip through and watch the few fights with guys I recognize You have any specific thoughts on any of the fights before the main and co-main event?
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, it really is, this one being in Zagreb, Croatia, definitely more of a regional flavor to this card. A lot of the Fight Pass fighters you see on the international cards, Nicholas Dalby on there versus Zach Cummings, Jan Blachowicz versus Igor Pokrais. It should be a decent card. I mean, as we've said so many times before, some of the best cards and some of the ones you end up being most entertained are some of the ones where you look at them on paper and say, gosh, there's really not a whole lot going on here. But more often than not, those are the occasions where a lot of these guys, you know, they're trying to make their name. They're trying to get recognized so that next time you'll say, oh, yeah, I saw him smoke this fool, or, oh, yeah, I saw that chick before. She was badass. So every now and then you get some good finishes. But as far as specific matches overall, there's not a whole one that really stands out aside from the co-main and main. I would say Robert Whiteford versus Lucas Martins. Both of the guys have some decent name recognition. They've been in the UFC for a little bit now. Martins has a great kickboxing and striking style. Whiteford, a good mixed martial artist in his own right. So that should be a decent fight on a host of some fairly solid other ones as well.
Yeah, and coming up to the co-main event, a fight that should be pretty interesting between the 38-year-old Brazilian fighting out of Worcester, Massachusetts, Gabe Gonzaga, and the 31-year-old fighter fighting out of New Orleans, Derek the Black Beast Lewis, which I always laugh when I hear John Anik call Derek Lewis the Black Beast. Just thinking that there's probably one person out there watching Fox Sports 1 that doesn't know that the Black Beast is his nickname and probably thinks John Anik is just being incredibly racist. But Gabe is 1-3 in his last 4 losses, coming to Stipe Miocic by decision, Matt Mitrione by TKO, and Mirko Krokop by TKO, winning his last fight last December against Konstantin Arokin. Derek Lewis on a 2-fight winning streak, both TKO wins against Victor Pesta and Damian Grabowski. He also lost to Matt Mitrione in the first round in 2014 via TKO. Has a win against Juan Potts. Lost to Sean Jordan when Jordan landed that crazy spinning hook kick and followed it up with punches. This fight I'm giving to Derek Lewis. He's younger. He's improving more. I think Gabe Gonzaga's chin has been a little bit of a question mark. But I mean, look for this fight to end via finish, because literally every single one of Derek Lewis's UFC fights, and he has 7 of them, have been finished by TKO or KO, and he's 5-2 in those 7. Gabe Gonzaga, I'm looking at his record, and it looks like he only has 2 decisions in his last 9 or 10 fights. So look for this to be finished early, and I got Derek Lewis winning. Pat, who do you have? Lewis Gonzaga?
Seeing similar outcomes for this co-main event. I mean, really, whatever happens, as you mentioned, there is a high probability for violence here. Gabe Gonzaga, especially when he's on, man, he is a crusher. He does have heavy hands, good ground and pound, savage jiu-jitsu. And Derek Lewis, he is just a heavy hitter. I want to say all of his UFC wins are by TKO, if I'm not mistaken. He is, and as you mentioned, also just improving every time. He definitely seems to be on the upward trend, while Gabe Gonzaga is not in the peak of his career. I mean, he came out of retirement a couple of years ago, was starting to do quite well, but then, as you mentioned, he's 1-4 or 1-3 in his last four, having just snapped a 3-fight losing streak against one of the lower tiered opponents in the UFC. So Derek Lewis, he certainly seems to be in a position to take this one. This will be his biggest fight on his biggest stage. And it's an international card. It'd be really interesting to see how he deals with the travel. But then again, Gabriel Gonzaga, being a U.S. Or living in the U.S. himself, he does have that same travel to overcome. But Gonzaga, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, he's traveled for international cards before the UFC. Certainly nothing new to him. Derek Lewis, I don't know that he has as much. So this is some big first for him, but I certainly think, like you, that he will rise to the occasion, and I see a finish for Derek Lewis. But we really can't sleep on Gonzaga. Again, with his grappling, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to pull a choke out somewhere along the way.
Yeah, and that brings us to the main event. But before we get to Rothwell and Junior Dos Santos, it appears we have a caller. Caller, thank you for calling into the MMA podcast. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing great, except what the hell are you guys doing?
It's Ramses from the Word on the Street, people, on Twitter at the Ant Chewy Show. Ramses, we're cutting an MMA podcast here. We're breaking shit down. Gonzaga, Lewis.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm doing a fucking run-in, man. I'm sorry for cursing on your show, but this is a WrestleMania run-in. All right, you didn't see this coming. All right, you don't even know, man. But guess what? Yeah. Guess what? Yeah, what are you guys doing, man? I'm just like, I'm sitting around, I have nothing to do. And then, like, I see, like, you just tweet out randomly, "We are live" on Twitter. And, like, you should have, like, tweeted that out by what I'm hearing from the show, maybe an hour or two ago. So I don't even know what you even covered, all right? So, P-Money, I know I gotta ask real quick, just honestly, this is why I'm doing the run-in. There's two reasons. P-Money, you on Facebook, I believe, you posted something about, like, the best cigar, like, from where? I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. That was rated as the best cigar of the year of 2015. Of course, we're talking about the Tatuaje TAA 2015.
Okay, look, I don't know anything about. Let's just try to tie it into MMA, so that, like, I don't fuck up Jake's little thing here that he's got going. All right.
Yo, Ramses, when the fuck is the Word on the Street coming back? The people have been hounding me for months and months. When is the Word going to come back? Huey just says, I don't know. Depends on Ramses. I say the same thing. We're waiting on you, brother.
It depends on Chael, actually. Chael, I gave him the option of 3 days. And then, like, if those 3 days don't match one of your days, it's not going to happen. Right now, I'm basically just test recording just to make sure my shit works. That's the only reason I did this run-in. But I'm pretending like I'm interested in what you guys are fucking talking about. P-Money, though, that cigar, tied it into MMA. Like, the one that you put on Facebook, like, what is the difference between a normal cigar and, like, an over-the-top one, as far as, like if you had to compare them to fighters? Yeah, I just fucking asked that.
Really, if you had to compare it to fighters, it's just, it's like.
What's the John Jones cigar? What's the Clay Guida?
That really is what it comes down to. I'd rather call it the Mighty Mouse of cigars, the pound for pound best of cigars. There's one that is champion overall. That every
What is it,
time,
joint sized?
well, you know what? There are some. That's probably the correct answer. But if we're talking about the puros, as my friends refer to it,
The shit.
I mean, if you're looking for that Mighty Mouse, it's just there are some, and not necessarily in the high dollar range, but you got to find that quality. And when you do, you will see that there is the one champion, the champion of quality that delivers every single time in every single category. It checks all the boxes. You can go for, 2 through 10, and you'll find something enjoyable in each one of them. But do they check every single box every single time? Maybe not. That consistency and that level of excellence that delivers over and over again, that is what you get from the finer things in life, Ramsey.
And you got to keep them hydrated, just like fighters, to tie it into Jake's fucking thing here.
Oh, it's like anything on this earth, Ramses. You have to keep them properly hydrated, properly lubricated. They're efficient machines, and you have to keep that balance at all times. I'm
going to order one of those cigars. I don't even smoke, man. Well, of course, obviously I smoke, but not cigars. But I'm gonna try it.
Hey-o.
Second point, Jake. I don't know if you covered it. There's only 2 fights upcoming that matter to me now that Jones versus Carl Cormier Winslow went down the hill. Yeah, now that that's gone, there's only 2 fights that matter to me. It's, of course, I'm biased, but I think they're both going to win.
In Hall versus Anderson Silva.
You got it. Did you guys already cover that?
Usually we cover a fight.
Usually we done yes or no.
Yes, we covered Anderson Hall. No, I think did we do Gastelum Hendricks last week? I think we did.
Well, break it down.
I think we did.
Or whatever. How it's your show. I'm sorry for doing the run-in, the Vince McMahon run-in, the Shane McMahon.
No. I think Silva Hall all depends on the mindset Silva goes in with. If he wants to play fucking patty cake like he did against Bisping, Hall will knock him out. But if he goes in there seriously, I think he's the better counter striker. I think both of these guys have weird psychology issues and have incredible skill, so it really could go either way. If I have to pick, I guess I'm going Anderson. And Gastelum versus Hendricks. I'm picking Johnny because I think he's the best welterweight in the world.
You just lost all the money you would have bet. P Money, what do you think, man? Call them both if you had to bet right now.
Call them both. Oh my goodness. I hate you, Ramses. Why would you do this? This was Ms. TV, and now you showed up, and it's fucking the word on the street all of a sudden. This was actually, you know what? I hope this is better than Ms. TV. Always. I digress.
It's a fugazi.
You know what? Silva versus Hall. I never thought Hall would have a chance. All those bullshit comparisons to Anderson Silva. But nowadays, talk about people whose stocks, one is sharply on the rise, the other one is sadly declining. It's not on fire. It's not the Hindenburg going down right now, but my goodness, it's certainly not looking too promising. Uriah Hall actually stands a serviceable chance in this fight.
Serviceable.
Just because Anderson Silva, you never know. You never know what he's going to do. He's been playing these games for years. The Damian Maia fight, the Talis Lapis fight, these were, 6-7 years ago. He's been playing these games for as long as he's been. And, man, Uriah Hall, we see him doing some things lately, but gun to my head like it is right now, money is on Anderson Silva and Johnny Hendricks.
Oh my God! I almost want to bet both of you guys.
Don't get it twisted. I'm going to be rooting for Hall and KG very hard. And if either lose, it's going to actually make me sad. But I'm going to take my bias out of it. If I'm being honest, we're not talking about two bums in Anderson Silva and Johnny Hendricks. We are talking about two
former champions,
legendary fighters. Yeah. So I don't know. Both wins are possible for both guys, and I will be rooting for them.
They've both been murked. All right. Anderson got beaten by not only Nick Diaz, who was probably high at the time. He also got destroyed by a one-eyed blind man by the name of Michael Bisping, who also had a I'm not gonna blow up his spot, an undisclosed injury. All right, Anderson's done. He's just in it for the paycheck. It's like every time BJ Penn comes back. And Johnny Hendricks, come on, man. He's got he's got everything at stake on this fight, and guess what? His steakhouse fucking failed. All right. So yeah. So you parlay KG, Kelvin Gastelum, and Uriah Hall, you're gonna make a lot of fucking money. And I was gonna add John Jones to that, to beat Carl Cormier Winslow, but he dropped out. So there goes the extra fucking $300. But that's my call. That is the word on the street. I'm sorry for interrupting whatever card you were breaking down or whatever, but this is what really matters, people. The big fights. What
about Conor Nate too? Is that fight going to be a work?
Oh, did you guys? I didn't even listen until you tweeted we are live, which was an hour later than the broadcast began. So I don't even know.
I think we tweeted it. We were planning on starting at 10:30, but we started 11:30 because we're fucking potheads. But
and where was the WhatsApp? I'm about to go on live. Where was the invite? What's going on? Like what do I have to do?
What do I owe you, cocksucker? Yo,
I have to do an out. You're normally
on Twitter. Yo, hey, the phone lines are always open for you, Alan, Ross Finkelstein, anyone listening. The phone lines are always open, and I actually mentioned at the top of the show. It is. Yo, I haven't been on WhatsApp all day, son. I've been busy. I've been grinding. I've been hustling.
Yeah.
I slept okay.
Today. But to answer your question, did you hear Nate's appearance on Chael Sonnen's podcast? You're welcome.
No, I didn't. What did he talk about?
He talked about exactly what you asked me. He knows they tried to set him up.
Going to be at work?
No, he knows the UFC tried to set him up to lose to Conor.
Oh yeah, of course, that's obvious.
Yeah, and he specifically said, like, guess what? I fucked up your plans, motherfuckers. Like, he went into detail about like how they tried to set him up, what they thought was gonna happen, and how he spoiled their plans, and how this is all bullshit, and now he's just gonna absolutely nuke Conor McGregor in the next fight. I suggest you listen to it. I'm not giving you podcast advice here, but I'm giving you podcast advice. Listen, do your fucking search. You son of a bitch.
So you're picking Nate. I'm actually picking Conor.
Look, Nate beat Conor on 9 days' notice when like they thought he was just gonna be some stoner coming in like some punch drunk motherfucker, which Nate actually addresses on the Chael Sonnen podcast. Again, I'm giving out fucking free plug, but yeah, honestly, listen to it. He breaks it down. He tells them exactly how they tried to screw him multiple times. He's even like, I believe he says at one point, "Fuck the UFC."
Really?
Yeah. And he calls it. He's like, now I'm gonna have a full training camp, it ain't gonna be like he's not even worried. You can tell it in the tone of people's voices, like when they don't give a fuck because they already know.
Conor didn't seem worried before 196.
That's his gimmick. But guess what? The look on his face when they fought said otherwise.
I thought Conor did a lot better in that fight than a lot of people make it out to be. And I think it's really even. I think if they fight 10 times, Conor maybe wins 6. And I think it's really a matter of who drops first, because both of them are really, really, really good at taking advantage of a wobbled opponent. The second Conor drops, Nate's going to chase him down and choke him out. The second Nate drops, Conor's going to follow it up with 2 or 3 hard left hands that are going to finish the fight. So I think Conor came close to dropping Nate a couple different times, but he didn't. I think I really don't know why Conor didn't follow his own advice at the post-fight presser where he said, these welterweights just don't fall when I land the left. Even if you want the rematch, do it at 55, so at least there's a little bit better a chance that when you land that left hand that it puts him out. But if odds are even or close to even, I think I'm going to bet for Conor here because, Conor I think is going to be the hungrier fighter in this fight, unlike UFC 196.
I pray that you're not a gambler. Also on the same podcast.
I'd put like $10 on it. I'm not a big gambler at all.
Yeah, Nate actually addresses that because like Chael's like, he clocked you with his best hard punches, his lefts, multiple times. And Nate's like, yeah, it didn't feel like shit. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? No. But like you saw
that really rocked me. I almost fucking died.
You saw the fight. He did clock him with his best, his hard shit. And it did nothing. Like, what's going to be different this time? Besides, if they fucking pay Nate off,
Nate
conspiracy.
looked pretty fucked up when the fight was over.
I don't actually remember what he looked like, but I just remember the first thing out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Which, of course, was, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
In
the interview, he says it didn't feel like anything. He said he had no fucking power. Nothing. And then you see in Conor's face in the fight, if you rewatch it, he's like, holy shit.
Well, I mean, that's a lie, though, because the guy is one of the harder hitting guys at 45, and yeah, even though it's not going to be as much at 70, even at 70, he's one of the harder hitting guys at welterweight. I mean, Nate, what else is he supposed to say other than,
I'm talking about what we saw, though. We saw Conor hit him.
I saw Conor hit him flush, and Nate kind of blink a couple times, but he never got wobbled, which means he just didn't hit him in the right place.
Oh, okay, that's your out. He didn't hit him in the. He didn't. Are you fucking? You're trolling me, man. You're trolling me.
He landed 2 or 3 hard shots, and not every hard shot is gonna finish the fight. He still got hit clean.
Dude, the guy had 9 days notice, and the dude couldn't even rock him. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like just
Conor had 9 days to prep for Nate too. It goes both ways.
I'm talking about a full training camp.
Nate stays in shape. It's not like Nate is going to come into the fight out of shape like Chad Mendez did.
God damn it! It's another thing that it's the reason why you should have listened to the podcast. Nate actually addresses the fact that the reason the UFC called him was because they saw on Instagram and on his Twitter that he was on vacation and bloated and fat and on a boat in fucking Mexico.
I'm sure that's why the UFC made the fight. I don't believe that at all.
You don't think they wanted Conor to win?
I think they wanted a fight that would have sold tickets. And Conor Nate, I mean, everyone agreed that when Dos Anjos backed out of the fight, he was going to get one of two opponents, Cerrone or Diaz. It was going to be either the fight gets canceled or we see Conor versus Cerrone or Conor versus Diaz. Cerrone fought 2 weeks prior to that injury, so a lot of people, before any announcement was made, were saying, yeah, we might see Diaz versus Conor. A lot of people. I don't think the UFC's decision was made by them going on Instagram being like, oh, look, Nate's in Mexico. I fucking hate Nate and want him to lose. Let's make him fight Conor now. Yeah, fuck him. Nate made a lot of money. Whether he would have won or lost, he would have still made a lot of money. So I don't agree at all with this thing of, oh, the UFC only wanted the fight because they hate Nate and this is BS, etc. Like, I think. Oh yeah,
Conor just went up 2 weight classes out of nowhere.
He was already going to fight at 55.
Yeah, but they fought at 170. What I'm saying is, suddenly the
why
change
are they
of plan
fighting
is,
at Why are they fighting at 70 again?
Well, the change of plan was like, let's pick somebody at 170 that like
fighting at 70. I think gives Nate an advantage because both of them are So I don't know what the point is.
And then they the immediate rematch. Like, have you addressed this on your show?
Yeah, I mean, you are hearing conflicting things about why the fight is at 70. I don't know why it is. Honestly, I guess apparently Conor's pushing for an exact rematch because it's like he's obsessed with avenging this loss.
Basically, it's this. Say you're a businessman, all right? And your fucking $1 million horse just lost a race. All right, all you have to do is like give him another chance to win another race, and it'll only cost you about $500,000, but the return on your investment could be $5 million, $6 million, $10 million. Conor McGregor. What are you gonna do? You're gonna make that bet. You get what I'm saying here?
I have no idea what the fuck you are talking about right now, Ramsey.
I'm saying the rematch with Nate Diaz is going to cost the UFC just
like
fight
every other fight that's ever been made in UFC history. It's going to cost the UFC, but you're hoping the return on it is worth the cost. I don't like Nate that's Diaz's what matchmaking is. That's basic matchmaking. You want to make fights that benefit the fighters, but in turn benefit you because the people want to watch the fighters because their stock is rising. You know,
nobody wanted to see this rematch. Nobody except the UFC, hoping that their champ, or not their champ, but Conor, their money dog, like happens to cash in.
And it's the same reason they're making Frankie fight Aldo for a shot against Conor, because they probably know, like most fans, Frankie could easily tear Conor the fuck up.
Actually, that fight would be more interesting than seeing him try to beat Nate, who like absolutely murked him. Like,
yeah, I think more fans wanted to see Conor Frankie for a multitude of reasons.
Exactly, but there's no money.
I mean, UFC 200 is supposed to be this blockbuster card, and you have a non-title fight as the main event. Like, what?
Exactly.
Like,
Conor should be defending his belt.
Like, the UFC needs to put more stock into their own championships, because this has literally zero title implications at all. You have Nate Diaz, a lightweight, who's not fighting in his division, and you have Conor McGregor, the featherweight champion, 2 divisions away from the belt that he should be defending. Not only that, but Frankie Edgar has earned a title shot. The fact he has to beat Aldo after his win against Mendez is kind of preposterous. I think the UFC is probably going to be rooting for Aldo because Conor has a better chance to beat Aldo in a rematch for the featherweight belt. Nothing
is at stake for UFC 200. I don't know if you guys even was that on your sheet.
We talked about it last week. I think the news had come out. I think it came out like right before we went live that they were doing Conor Diaz 2 officially as the main event, and they also were putting on Aldo Edgar. I think they talked about it on UFC Tonight, and then we went on after and talked about it. I don't
Nothing at stake.
Like it personally, but I understand why they would do it, But I think it could easily backfire on him. I am picking Conor, but I don't think it's a gimme fight at all. I think the line should be close to even, and Nate could easily win the fight again. And if Conor loses again, his stock plummets even more than it did the first time.
Exactly, but you got to hedge. If you're the UFC, you have to just take the risk again. Since he already lost, his stock is down. So you pay Nate Diaz $1 million, $2 million for a possible return of Conor McGregor being worth what, $10, $20 million.
So how much do they pay Nate Diaz to take the dive?
That's actually I know you don't like when I go there.
The fight was a work, people.
But yeah, they might go there. I mean, and Nate might take it because he's not as fucking stupid as people think. And again, I encourage you to listen to the fucking interview because he addresses exactly how they tried to screw him and set him up. And then he says, fuck the UFC, fuck Conor McGregor, and then he predicts what's going to happen in the next fight. And Chael actually ends the podcast because he starts cursing and ranting and raving, but it's ridiculous. But yes, sorry for doing the run-in, guys. You can get back to your breakdown of Brunson versus.
But I'm tired of seeing all these queers in the UFC.
Brunson versus Dos Santos, or whatever the fuck you guys were talking about. But no, P Money. Those cigars, I'm gonna try them out, man. And I don't even smoke cigars. If they're no good, I'm going to have sex with whoever you love the most. That is female.
Stay on for the last topic, Ramses. Rothwell versus Junior Dos Santos. Who you got?
Dos Santos, because I believe, because I saw him at UFC 166 in Houston. That was my first UFC fight that I ever attended live, and I saw him put Kane through the cage. The octagon cage actually broke, and they didn't show it on TV, but the cage fucking broke. And then, somebody in between rounds had a fucking drill and had to put it back together, in 30 seconds. It was cool. But I believe that Junior is a great boxer. I think he's had enough time to where his brain is properly, rewired itself to where it can function again. Hopefully. So I'm going with JDS. Big fan, and because Ben Rothwell's just a big dumb, Fred Flintstone idiot. I won't bet on it though because as a rule of thumb, I never bet on heavyweights because it's just any one of these dumb lummoxes could land. No offense to any heavyweights out there, but that's the way it is. Let's face it. Like,
That's
it's just
so
whoever
true.
lands. It's whoever
It's
lands.
so true.
Yeah, I don't bet on those fights. That's ridiculous, man. Oh, did you guys
God damn it, Ramses.
I know.
You know I always say don't bet on the heavyweights. That's
Yep.
that's a P-Money patented Vegas
Oh, that's
move
your
right
trademark. Okay,
Oh,
well, guess
bro.
what? You got it from me. But P Money. Wait. Hold on. Can I just like throw a curveball into your MMA podcast, Jake?
Of course, always.
Okay.
Bro, you got that tip from me like you got your cigar recommendations. But what was that? Go ahead.
Just topical but non MMA related, but I'll twist it so that it is. Okay, let's say Batman and Superman, the movie came out. Everybody watch it, hopefully. If you haven't, like, you don't give a shit, so whatever.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
No, hold on. Let's say Batman and Superman had an actual MMA fight, but Superman doesn't have his powers. Who would win? That's right, I'm smoking weed.
Obviously, with this line of questioning, Ramsey, my goodness. Well, Superman without his powers, I mean, that depends. What planet is it on, son? There's so many different factors. If it's on the planet Earth and Superman doesn't have his powers and it's against Batman,
Earth
I gotta
gravity.
give it to Batman.
Yeah.
But if that shit's on Krypton, then it's on, and Superman will smash
Oh, oh!
Batman. It's a home field advantage.
Have you both seen the movie?
No, we about Marvel up in this, son. Marvel Comics.
So none
doing,
of you have
son?
seen the movie?
We repping Marvel up in here, son.
None of you have
don't
seen
love
the
this?
movie.
You in Marvel territory, man.
This is a yes or no question. Have any of you seen the movie?
Not
I have
only have
not
I
seen the
never
movie.
seen Batman Superman, I've never seen a Superman movie, and I only saw Dark Knight. That's the only Batman movie I've ever seen.
P Money, did you
Wow.
see it?
Batman. Fuck Batman, dog.
Oh no, I did not see it. I did not.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Spoiler alert for anybody. You just lost any listeners, Jake. Luckily, not me. I'm probably the only live listener. Spoiler. In the movie, there's a scene where Bruce Wayne, Batman, is actually like going to underground MMA fights. He's like a fan or something.
What the fuck, dog?
I know, it's fucked up. Like he just likes watching fucking fights. So he goes to an underground MMA fight and like he bets all the money on this one guy. The one guy he's betting on is getting fucked up. And then like he happens to like, you know, get knocked down and then Bruce Wayne just goes up to him and whispers like some fucking like strategy in his ear. And the guy looks at him like, "What the fuck?" And then he's like he nods his head like, "Yeah, all right, fuck it." And then he gets back up and destroys the other man. So that's why I think if I had to call it, Batman would absolutely destroy Superman in an actual fight where Superman doesn't have powers.
You invite me to your home and you give me the Susquehanna weed.
No, this is the straight up like space weed, dude. This is the fucking kryptonite weed, man. It's glowing. I can see it in my bowl. It's glowing,
Damn.
man. It's kryptonite. I'm smoking kryptonite, and that's why I did this run in. But I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna like I'll mute myself or whatever. You guys can continue with whatever silly breakdown you guys were doing. But I'm just gonna keep it going because I want to test my recording just to make sure it doesn't fuck up. Because
Yeah,
I am coming back and I am going to interview Chael Sonnen. He just needs to pick a day. I gave him 3, so he needs to pick one day. And if it matches up with any of your days, Jake, it's going down within 7 days.
Sounds beautiful. Yeah, we're actually just wrapping up here. I guess I'll give my pick, which is Rothwell over Dos Santos. Of recent, Rothwell, he's been looking fucking excellent. 2 TKO wins against Vera and Overeem, and 2 subs just in the last year against Mitrione and Barnett. I have him defeating Junior Dos Santos there in a little upset special. Visit the show on Twitter, the MMA Podcast. Pat, anything for the people before we send it out?
Oh man, no, you know what? It's been a pleasure, Jake, as always. Ramsey's, even though he busted in our fucking, he did the Ric Flair style. He busted some twin magic. He fucking showed up high on fucking dick and dope and who knows what else. You know what? It was a lovely time. It was great catching up with our old buddy. It was great breaking shit down with you as always. And looking forward to coming back next week and keeping this train rolling, brother.
Follow our friend at Coach Jamie Huey. Ramses, where are you? And give it to the people one last time before we close it out.
The Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter. Thanks, Jake, for clicking accept the call on Skype. And thank you in advance because I need your help. This is going to probably be my last podcast when we do the interview with Chael, because it is the title interview. And I'm sorry I missed your earlier talk because I didn't see the tweet and I didn't see it on WhatsApp. And what's up, man? What? I don't even get a fucking invite anymore? I'm back. I'm back, motherfuckers. And I'm stronger than ever. And let's all come back, man. Let's all do this shit. But no, seriously, you guys, thanks for listening to my ridiculousness. I did save the show. But other than that, child support, not on my watch. Word on the street.
Hell yeah. At Ross Finkelstein, E before the L, to follow his bastard son. Pat's at Sweet Pappy Jones. Ramsey's at the Aunt Jimmy Show. Who else? Follow us, the MMA Podcast, themapodcast.com. Click the links at the top for iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. All of that nonsense. Until next week, we will see you later.
Tune into the MMA Podcast every Tuesday night.
Got the wild style, always been a foul child. Realize, sucker, I be the coming like Noah.
The MMA Podcast, Jake is the host. And since Ramsey's been in the wheelchair, the Aunt Jimmy Show has been on the road. I wanna say John Jones is a host, so I think that I'll pick up the phone and dial 213-457-3380. We got hot takes on the stove.